Greetings and welcome, Dapplings, to the 6th round in our 8000p Reassembly tournament. This is Group Th, and we have with us the unnamed spaceship at 8014p, a very nice aerodynamic looking ship. Maybe it's designed for operation in atmospheres. I mean, that's really the only reason you'd make a spaceship aerodynamic. The thrusting brick, which, as the name implies, is just a brick with thrusters, well, and guns, obviously. The guns are implied. At 8089, it might be a little bit difficult to see there because of the colours. The Tick Mark 1 at 8000p exactly, what a beautiful ship that is. Actually looks like its namesake. The Vagrant at 8061p kind of looks like a space fish. The Titan at 8000p exactly. Now, this is a Faction 4 ship. It's got a fairly long spine-mounted gun there, but a very interesting design overall. I think it possibly has enough thrusters to counteract the thrust of its main weapon. We'll have to see. We also have the Halberd Alpha Biomechanical Muffin. What a truly stupendously awesome name that is. At exactly 8000p. Now, this one looks really nice. It's got rows of thrusters along the side and a kind of a main rack of heavy-hitting cannons in the middle. No Faction 4 lasers here, but it has got spine-mounted plasma guns. And Executor at 8014p. Now, this one could either be a double-headed axe or a space guitar. I choose to believe it is a space guitar, but regardless of what it is, actually it's the first one up, we're going to see how these combatants do. So first up, we've got Executor against Vagrant. Ooh, it's launching drones. Oh, a Faction 4 ship, I see. Interesting, very interesting. Oh, no, it's not. It's actually antimatter cannons by the looks of it. I was a little bit confused there, but it's actually got a long spine of antimatter cannons. The Vagrant did fairly well in that first engagement. The antimatter cannons are mostly gone this time, but the Executor still won the battle with its AoE cannons. Launching the drones again. Let's see if the antimatter can take down the shields this time before it loses the whole neck. It looks okay. It's actually burrowing straight through. The Vagrant did very well in the first round, managed to disable the antimatter cannons early on, but in the following two rounds didn't quite manage to do enough damage to completely disable it. Now, up against the thrusting brick, got the drones initially out there, and it looks like the Executor is quite happy to just keep retreating while the thrusting brick is advancing. Now, obviously that's going to stop being useful once it reaches the boundary of the arena, but by then it may have so many drones in the air that the thrusting brick is going to be very hard pressed to actually do any damage. Now, you'll notice where the drones are trying to attack. The thrusting brick has its cockpit at the front of the vehicle. If you look along the middle row of cannons between the fourth and fifth column, you will actually see the cockpit. Now, that's in a remarkably vulnerable position, all things considered, and I can only assume that that was done intentionally, perhaps as a way to balance a very powerful ship design. If that is the case, then well done indeed. That is very, very sporting. But it looks like the Executor is simply going to flank that cockpit and take it out there. That was potentially game-ending blunder by reversing right into the wall there. The thrusting brick couldn't quite bring all of its cannons to bear early enough, however. So, in the interest of brevity, we will speed this up because it may play out exactly the same, at least until they reach the wall. So let's speed things up. There we go, slowing right down. Ooh, the Executor not getting away quite as soon as it should have this time. But the thrusting brick seems to be suffering from the fact that the drones have already disabled all of its lateral thrusters. The thrusting brick can really only do one thing, and that is move forward into a wall, and given its size, it's not going to pitch either way. If it had more of a sort of triangular nose, it might have tipped one way or the other and then been able to continue moving. Right, so the Executor 2 wins so far. Up against the Titan, our Faction 4 ship, with an incredibly powerful gun there. My goodness. And it looks like the Executor, unless it can move out of the way, may be in a bit of trouble here. That massive cannon is a force to be reckoned with, and the Executor, all it's able to do is try to flee, and unfortunately, it is gone. Right, hopefully, unfortunately, we've got the black screen bug, so we're going to have to watch this one from the side. It looks like the Executor, though, is deciding to try and get around the Titan. Very nice moving there by the Executor. It's almost burrowed all the way through to the main gun. The main gun has been disabled on the Titan, and the Executor wins. Well done. That was particularly interesting. So we've got one win all. And up now, it looks like it's doing exactly the same thing. It's learned to fear the nose of the Titan, so it's not getting anywhere near that, though the Titan has managed to sweep its lasers across the front of the Executor a little bit, but it's about to lose that gun, and indeed, yes, it has. The Executor moves forward. Well done there again, so we're up to 3 wins for the Executor. Up next, the Halberd Alpha by Mechanical Muffin. I'm going to say that name every possible opportunity I have. Those antimatter cannons doing a very, very good job, but the Mechanical Muffin has enormous firepower there and absolutely obliterated the Executor's main gun and then the Executor thereafter. And it is launching some missiles, but the Executor seems to have the better long-range firepower, but the Halberd Alpha just too fast. It could close in far too quickly than the Executor could deal with, and that awesome firepower was brought to bear. Now, up against the Tick, what a beautiful craft this is. The Tick has got reasonable long-range firepower, and it may actually be able to disable the main guns on the Executor early on, and the Executor may be forced to rely on its drones. It would probably be best to retreat at this point. No, never mind, the Executor knew exactly what it was doing. It was actually going for the rear cockpit. Well played indeed. Now, of course, that is always the issue. If you put the cockpit at the front, then something attacking from the front will have an easier time. If you put it at the back, then someone attacking from the back will have an easier time. So it all comes down to the agility of your ship. Can your ship prevent itself from presenting its rear to the enemy faster than the enemy can maneuver around behind? Ultimately, in this case, the Tick did not, but it seems to be doing a little bit of a better job this time. The Executor having a bit of trouble getting its main guns to bear, but its drones are doing a surprisingly good job at just neutralizing the shield. So every time the Executor does manage to shoot, it is, well, if it hits, doing a reasonable amount of damage. We're going to speed things up a little bit, though, since this seems to be a war of attrition at the moment. Though the Executor is losing its main cannon, the Tick may not have to worry about those antimatter guns for too much longer at this point. In fact, yes, there we go, the antimatter guns have been disabled to a small degree. The drones have been released again. At this point, the Executor is going to win on points in exactly 2 seconds, and there we go. Alright, the Executor moves forward once again. 4 wins to the Executor, 1 to the Halberd Alpha, and the final fight for the Executor up against the unmanned spaceship. Or rather, unnamed spaceship. I keep thinking unmanned. But the unnamed spaceship, some very nice proton beams there, have already stripped away half of the antimatter cannons the Executor has brought to this battle, and is now stripping away its maneuvering ability. There we go. The Executor is probably going to go into an unbalanced spin, whilst the unnamed spaceship just takes its time, picks its target, and removes it with surgical precision. Well done, unnamed spaceship. Now, those torpedoes at the front, that's actually really nice to have a torpedo volley on any ship. They are staggeringly powerful if you can actually deliver them well, and I think it did just then. Well done, unnamed spaceship. You actually dealt with the Executor quite well, and the Executor is no slouch, as we've seen. Next up is the Vagrant against the Thrusting Brick. Now, Vagrant, how are you going to do? The Thrusting Brick has an awful lot of frontal firepower. I don't think charging headlong into it was particularly wise. I don't think moving around the side is going to be particularly wise. I mean, it's basically got lots of firepower everywhere you could possibly go. So at this point, I think the Vagrant has already lost its chance to push forward, and indeed the Thrusting Brick has won. So the second round is going to be in pitch darkness. I apologize about that, but let's speed things up a little bit to see how this goes. Looks like it's going to be a replay of the first one, though I will say the Vagrant is getting very close to stripping back to the cockpit of the Thrusting Brick, but unfortunately it has started to sway to the side. It's no longer able to continue burrowing through in that same spot. I suspect the Thrusting Brick has this once again, so we'll speed it up. There we go. Thrusting Brick wins its first battle. So the Vagrant up against the Titan now. Let's see how the Vagrant manages against this Faction 4 weapon. Oh, it's already cleaved off the shield, but the Vagrant, no slouch, has managed to maneuver around the sides. Now, all the Vagrant needs to do is avoid attacking the Titan from the front, which it is doing, unfortunately, but it may actually be able to position itself. There we go. It's now trying to cut its way through, and there we are. Very nicely done, Vagrant. Very nicely done. Drat, it looks like we're going to be watching this one in darkness as well, though this time the Titan had enough of the Vagrant's shenanigans and decided to disable it early on. Wise move, Titan. We have seen what the Vagrant can do if you leave him there. Right. For those who are wondering, I am pressing space and it isn't recentering the camera, unfortunately. So Titan moves forward 2 easy victories after the Vagrant surprise victory in the beginning. Now, up against the Halberd Alpha, how's the Vagrant going to do? Those shields are quite impressive, and it does have a swell of armor. Unfortunately, the Halberd Alpha has AoE weapons, I believe, so the armor isn't necessarily going to be protecting the sensitive internals as much as one might expect. However, it is doing a good job of trying to burrow through, but no, it's all over, I think. The Vagrant couldn't quite deal with the massive AoE potential that the Halberd Alpha can bring to this battle. Let's see if that plays out in exactly the same way. Once again, Vagrant just barreling down bravely, but unfortunately, Halberd Alpha has just a little bit too much hollowing potential and managed to core the Vagrant like an apple. Right, against the Tick though, let's see. The Tick seems to be a craft that would benefit from just a frontal assault, but unfortunately so does the Vagrant, so it's hard to tell which one's going to win. Those proton weapons, yes, the proton beams were not destroyed, and thus they could burrow straight through to the Tick's cockpit. Will the same happen? I don't think so, as the Vagrant is attacking from a different direction this time. Is it going to be able to manage to bring these beams to bear once again? The cockpit on the Tick is at the rear, so this is the better angle to attack from, but the Tick isn't quite bringing those beams into the right sort of alignment right now, but it's slowly making a little bit of damage there, slowly taking away the cladding of the Tick, whilst the Tick is doing considerable damage to the Vagrant, but at the end of the day, the Vagrant won. Well done, Vagrant. Up next is the Vagrant's last battle against the unnamed spaceship. Now, who's going to win here? The initial torpedo volley has yet to strike on any of the unnamed spaceships' battles, but it may still manage that later. If it could deploy a torpedo volley right now and not lose it to the proton beams, then it would be in a very good position. But it looks like the Vagrant slightly doing better. Yes, it did. Managed to hollow out the internals of the unnamed spaceship very early on. I'm not sure that initial volley is ever going to hit anything, because the first thing most ships do is move slightly off the initial attack approach. And then if they are a frontline brawler, they'll come at it from a new position, but just slightly off from the starting position. So unless those torpedoes were aimed slightly to the side, I'm not sure they'll ever quite inflict any damage early on. Though this one maybe. Oh, 2 of them clipped the shield. That wasn't bad at all. Though I love the unnamed spaceship's side-mounted proton beams, and it's very, very nice. It's actually got a broadside on this ship. Even more evidence that this is designed to be a ship. Granted, it's a ship in space, but it is still built as though it were a ship. Now, this comes down to who can hollow out the other one first, and it looks like it was just the Vagrant, though I think the unnamed spaceship came very, very close there. Right, Executor is the one to win out 4 battles. We've next got the Thrusting Brick up against the Titan. The Titan's initial volley of its main weapon, mostly harmless, but the subsequent attack is doing appreciable damage. It's almost at the cockpit. If the Thrusting Brick can't move out of the way, it is going to be in with a bit of trouble, though why the Titan stopped firing there, I have no idea, but it looks like it's on target. Ooh. It managed to disconnect the cockpit entirely. Well done. I was wondering why the Titan wasn't dead. I was like, well, have I looked at it wrong? Is the cockpit not at the front? But it was. It just got completely disconnected. Right. Now, we've got a reasonable amount of firepower from the Thrusting Brick. If it could just focus it, it probably would have been able to disable that gun, but it could never really get enough thrust. So the Titan wins that round. 2 wins to the Titan. Thrusting Brick up against the Halberd Alpha by Mechanical Muffin. Now, these are 2 very heavy-hitting ships. One is much smaller, granted, but we'll see which one comes out on top. It looks like it could go either way, given the vulnerability of the cockpit. Oh no! Oh no! The Halberd Alpha has moved off its attack vector. If it had just persisted, if it had been a little bit more patient, it would have won there. It might still win. No, it keeps swaying back and forth. That is the only way that the Halberd Alpha was going to win in that initial fight. initial clash rather, is if it just held its ground. But unfortunately, by veering off, it gave the thrusting brick an opportunity just to wear it down as it approached later on. Now let's see if it can stand the storm this time, or whether it's going to back out again. It's looking good, looking very good. Oh, the thrusting brick is trying to compensate by moving its armor in the way, but it looks like the Halberd Alpha may get there. Yes, it did. Very well done indeed. Right, this is the decider. Unfortunately, it's going to be a black screen. Again, I can only apologize for that. Let's watch on the thumbnails who can do the most damage. Now, the thrusting brick always seems to do the most damage early on, but that vulnerable cockpit has cost it that victory. So the Halberd Alpha moves forward, and I keep stalling because I keep wanting to say the mechanical muffin moves forward. Okay, thrusting brick against the Tick. Now, this will be interesting because the Tick seems to be a frontline brawler. It seems to want to get in close, whereas the thrusting brick excels at close-range combat. Oh, though that said, the Tick is in a very good position, much like the Halberd Alpha, to take on the thrusting brick's cockpit without really having to make itself vulnerable to the majority of the thrusting brick's guns. If the thrusting brick would actually pulse its thrusters properly, it probably would have been able to win that fight. I mean, it's not guaranteed, but I suspect that the thrusting brick had just barreled down on the Tick, not slowed down once it was in range, it probably would have been able to destroy it. As we can see there, enormous alpha damage potential. And though it came quite close to losing its cockpit the second time. We're going to speed this one up, at least until we're in close range, and see if this plays out the same way. And there we go, the thrusting brick, again, fairly close to losing its cockpit, so the Tick was not being a slouch in that battle, but the thrusting brick just had more alpha damage ultimately. Now, this is the last battle for the thrusting brick, so let's see where it's going to position itself. Will it be able to equalize with the Executor with 4 wins? I don't know. The unnamed spaceship wisely choosing to keep its distance here. It's just launching rows of torpedoes. It's not particularly aiming them well, and a couple of drones here and there. Now, the drones are particularly dangerous for the thrusting brick, because if it loses those lateral thrusters, then it really only has one direction it can move, and that is forward. If the unnamed spaceship can just reverse, it may be able to get out of that tricky situation there. Though I suspect the unnamed spaceship actually has more medium-range firepower than the thrusting brick. Thrusting brick seems to be literally designed to just get in as close as possible, and it is as close as possible here. The unnamed spaceship is stuck in a corner. The thrusting brick moves in. It may actually be able to take it out. No, the unnamed spaceship wins by timeout, I believe. That was close, because the thrusting brick was barreling down on it, and I think the thrusting brick possibly would have won that one. But let's speed things up a little bit and see how this goes, because it looks like it's going to be a repeat of the last battle. Oh, this time the thrusting brick got in much, much closer. Much closer this time, and it's taken off some of the lateral thrusters. Right, there we go. The thrusting brick did not manage to get its next battle. And I was incorrect in thinking that it would be able to equalize with that win. It was actually only on 2 wins, so at best it could have gone to 3. Halberd Alpha made very short work of the Titan there. Let's see if that plays out the same way the second time. The Titan just can't seem to bring its main gun to bear against the Halberd Alpha before the Halberd Alpha's enormous firepower can strip that main gun from the middle of the craft. So, unfortunately there, the Titan did not do particularly well. But the Executor and the Halberd Alpha are now matched 4 for 4. Against the Tick, again, the Tick correctly approached the Titan from the side, though it has allowed the Titan to realign its main gun. This may be a problem, but if it can continue to apply that pressure... Oh no, it's presenting its rear! The cockpit is vulnerable! And the Titan takes it out. It was almost in a good position to take the Titan out there. We'll see how this plays out the second time. The Titan has got enough thrust to counteract the kickback from its main gun, and I do like seeing that in Faction 4 ships, because it means that they can take a little bit more time to align their weapon properly, rather than be subject to the whims of the weapon. But it looks like the Tick has done exactly the same thing, turned around and presented its very vulnerable cockpit there. Titan, in its last battle, is now up against the unnamed spaceship. Will it manage to move up to 4 wins? Will we have a 3-way tie? We don't know. And the Halberd still has at least 1 more battle to fight. I believe it has 2 more battles to fight. Ooh, this one looks interesting, because both the Halberd, the Titan and the unnamed spaceship seem to favor just barreling down and bringing its main weapon to bear. Let me turn off my phone alarm there. Sorry about that. It looks like the Titan has actually lost its main weapon, so the unnamed spaceship wins that round. I wasn't actually sure which one would win the steering contest, as it were, but it looks like it was in the unnamed spaceship in this instance. Now, it does have a broadside, which the Titan largely lacks, but bearing straight down, the Titan has to go through so many layers of armor to reach the forward-mounted, or rather the forward-facing proton beams, that I don't think the Titan will actually manage to do it before its main gun is destroyed. Though that said, it has cleaved off an entire side of the unnamed spaceship. If the unnamed spaceship can maintain this angle of approach, it may be fine, but it looks like it has strayed a little bit too close. The Titan may be able to pull this back. It looks like it's going to. Yes, there we go. Well done, Titan, there. Very well done. So this is the decider. We've got the unnamed spaceship moving in for a broadside again. Doesn't actually make full use of the broadside before the Titan corrects its approach. Now, it all comes down to this. Is the unnamed spaceship going to be able to destroy the Titan's main gun in time? If it can, then it moves forward. No, it doesn't look like it. It has completely had its cockpit disconnected from the main ship, and the Titan wins. So it's 3 people. The Executor, the Titan, and the Halberd Alpha all at 4. Now, the Halberd Alpha, if you can defeat either the Tick or the unnamed spaceship, you're going to move into the lead. And I believe at that point you will be in a position that cannot be challenged by anyone else in this tournament. But let's see how this plays out. Against the Tick, the Halberd Alpha has reasonable firepower, but the Tick is keeping the Halberd Alpha at medium range, where the Halberd Alpha's main weapons are not actually as effective. From this range, I believe the Tick will probably wear down the Halberd Alpha first, though that said, the Halberd Alpha has been burrowing through the middle of the Tick very, very well indeed. The Halberd Alpha's shields are preventing the Tick from really getting much further towards the cockpit, and the Tick's shields have just gone down. It looks like the Halberd Alpha may actually win this. I'm very surprised by that, very surprised, and it's nicking. That's fantastic. It just stole one of the guns from the Tick. Well done, Halberd Alpha. Well done. Though at this point, neither one is actually doing anything. So it's going to come down to points at this stage. Wow, really, guys? Right there. Come on. Move in. Finish this off. No? Don't feel like it, really? I mean, okay. The Halberd Alpha wins on points, that one. Right, let's see. Is the Tick going to be able to do it differently this time? Ooh. The Tick presented itself full on to the Halberd Alpha, and that enormous amount of shields kept the Tick from really being able to damage the main weapon systems of the Halberd Alpha. So the Halberd Alpha has won at this point. None of the other ships are going to be able to challenge the Halberd Alpha's position. Let's see if the Halberd Alpha can win every single one of its battles. If it does, I believe it's the first one in the tournament to do so. I may be incorrect about that. There may be one other. But it looks like the Halberd Alpha is approaching from exactly the right angle here. It's avoiding most of the firepower that the unnamed spaceship has to offer. Oh, no, it's strayed a little bit too close. But it's doing a good job of trying to whittle its way through the unnamed spaceship's armor. There we go. It eventually managed to get to the cockpit, though that was a close one. It actually took quite a lot of damage there. Next up, we will see if that plays out the same way. The unnamed spaceship going for an early broadside is trying to avoid just barreling down on the Halberd Alpha this time, but it looks like the Halberd Alpha is going to force the issue. This is actually a better approach than last time, though again it isn't quite pulsing its thrusters enough. I feel the Halberd Alpha needs to get right in there if it wants to take out its opponent early, but it doesn't look like it's going to do that. Nevertheless, it wins. At this point, Halberd Alpha becomes one of the first, if not the only, ship in this tournament to win all of its battles in its initial group. Now we'll just for posterity see which will have won between the Tick and the unnamed spaceship. Speed things up here. It looks like the unnamed spaceship may actually be in a good position to just burrow right the way through the Tick. The Tick really needs to try and approach from the side or... Well, yeah, actually, that's the only thing it could do against the unnamed spaceship, because the unnamed spaceship's weapons are so far back, the Tick needs to attack from the side or from behind to take them out. But there we have it. The Halberd Alpha moves forward, 8,000 on the nose. Very well done. A very, very nice design. Even against a Faction 4 ship, the Halberd Alpha achieves the same kind of level of damage, just not at the same range. But in close range, it also has splash damage, so a very, very interesting design indeed. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and are looking forward to the last of the initial battles, the initial group. That'll be Group E, in which we will see the Galactic Anomaly versus LEFS, Fiery Wheel Done Ship, Better Than Lasers, Dual Broadsword, Missile Shuriken Mark III, and Kali Noodle Dervish. By the way, there's nothing that's better than lasers. That is a lie, but we will allow it to stand for now. We'll see. Maybe if you win the entire tournament, okay, we will consider that perhaps it is something better than lasers. But that will all be for the next episode. I hope you're looking forward to it, as I am. But until then, and as always, do take care.